every time a home increases in cost by $1,000, we displace over 150,000 American families.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven-figure journey. My name is David Gilliland. I'm one of your hosts. We have with us today Zachary Mannheimer. So delighted to have you on here with us. He is with A3. Well, is it Alquist 3D? Is that how you like to say it?
Alquist 3D, yes.
Alquist 3D, which is that really cool stuff when you've seen the machine that prints an entire home or building with concrete or other materials in there. They do that and help others do that all over the country. So glad to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Tell us just a little bit now. You're out of, I just asked, out of Iowa.
Yes, I live in Iowa, but the company's based in Colorado.
You've been doing this for a while. How did you get started in the first place? Thinking, well, I'm going to get into 3D printing of buildings.
Well, if you had asked me many years ago if I would ever be doing this, it would be laughable. My main background is in theater, but for the past 15 to 20 years, I've been doing creative placemaking and economic development, primarily in rural communities all over the country. And that's how we came to this work, is that we were doing master planning work for these communities to help them rebuild and attract and retain the next generation of workforce. We did that through cultural projects and things that young people are looking for. But the bottom line here that every community has an issue with is housing. And it's not just affordable housing, it's housing at all levels. And I was struggling to figure out how to help these communities solve their housing crisis. And I discovered 3D printing back in 2016 and never looked back.
Very cool. And you decided to jump into that and play in this space. Did you go in with a partner, or is this like your business and then you've got a team?
We've had lots of partners over the years. I founded the company myself, but we've brought in many people that have helped us get to this point, far beyond just me, to get us to this level.
Very cool. Well, I love it, and it sounds like that's quasi like mission driven in it. Like, we've got to figure out a way to do this housing in general. Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, it's extremely mission driven. The way that we look at it, there's two major problems we're trying to solve. One is that every time a home increases in cost by $1,000, we displace over 150,000 American families. There's that horrible stat. And then you just take the grander picture of this, and that we live in a country where wealth generation is based upon home ownership. And that is the American dream that we've been sold and told for decades, if not centuries. And that system has largely been broken for at least the past 40 to 50 years. And so our approach is that there's really two ways to fix this. One is companies need to pay their employees more to afford the rising cost of these homes, or we need to decrease the cost of the materials to build the homes. In my opinion, we would ideally do both. But since we have no control over what the companies do, we focus squarely on how do we reduce the cost. And we're not there yet as an industry. We're still progressing towards that. But we have to do something to solve this problem. It gets worse every day. And I think if there's anything good about the COVID pandemic, which is a weird thing to say, it's that it finally shone a light on how bad this problem actually is, not just in urban settings, but suburban, micropolitan, and rural areas all over the country. This is a universal problem.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love mission-driven businesses, so great talking with you on it. Tell me a little bit though now, like, I mean, you've got a solution. You're out there implementing and doing it. You've grown a team. You've passed the $1 million mark. You're well into that 3 to 10 space, doing some serious work. What have you learned on that journey that has really helped you succeed? That, just some nuggets. You're talking to other 7-figure business owners, a lot of them in the 1 to 4 million phase, that are like, how do I get past this? Why am I bumping over and over? What's helped you?
We probably don't have time to go into all of it, but I'll share a couple large things here. Number one is don't trust your suppliers and vendors 100%, especially when you're in a nascent industry. This is a big problem that we had early on, is that we were sold machines or material that we were told would work one way or another and would provide certain levels of savings. And that turned out not to be that they were lying, but the fact of they just didn't know themselves. They had if you look at this world, largely the 3D printing world of concrete, there's roughly 200 companies globally doing this work. I would wager that 75% of those companies are manufacturers of machines or material. Very few of them actually know how to take the machine and go out into a hot Virginia summer and print a home. Now they can print walls all day long in their controlled environment, but doing that out in the field is incredibly challenging. We learned that the hard way, and so I wish I had questioned them further and built up more resources up front to do this, than blindly going into it. And to be fair, they didn't know, we didn't know. It's not like anybody did this maliciously, but pushing your suppliers, vendors, partners to challenge themselves and back up what they're saying, I would highly recommend. The second thing, of course, is have excellent people around you. And a lot of people say there's always hire people who are smarter than you, obviously, and I certainly am trying to do that all the time. But it's having people, not only people who you trust and who are hard workers, but people that you can form a personal relationship with. A lot of folks would say that it's best not to have personal relationships within your organization, and to an extent that can be true. But you're working with these people every day, and in this brave new world, when we're not seeing people face to face, in my company, we hardly ever do that unless we're actually on the job site. We are spread out all over the world. It's necessary to have FaceTime, to have community building, to learn about the folks that you're working with, their backgrounds, where they're from, their families, et cetera, what turns them on, what turns them off, making sure that these are people that you would want to hang out with, regardless of whether you were working with or not.
Why was that so important to you? And because you're counting this as a nugget, a lesson learned, means something wasn't working at some point.
Oh, there were multiple people. There were multiple people that we brought on that we did not look at that, and we said, hey, we need somebody with this skill sets, and this person has it. Let's hire them. Totally fine. And sometimes that works, and it's just okay. Other times, when you don't know enough about that person, it can kill an organization, especially a young company like ours. And we certainly had that struggle for years. We still have that struggle to an extent. We're not really at a mature company level yet. We're approaching it. Probably in the next 2 years, we'll hit that point. But with a small organization, everybody has to be pulling their weight, and beyond. This is not a 9-to-5 situation, and never has been. So you have to have people that are not only comfortable working like that, but that people that you want to be able to talk with on a regular basis about things that are not work related.
Yeah. Because this is the only people, these are the only people they're getting to hang out with when you're all putting everything in, right?
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. Great insights on there. What are you working on now? What are things that you're doing I mean, you're facing new challenges. You keep growing. Are there any things that you either want help with? Something you're like, here's a challenge I've been playing with, I've been thinking about, you want to talk about now on the call?
Sure. A big challenge for us is we weren't just starting a company, we were helping to start an industry. And either one of those things is daunting. And so doing both at the same time is incredibly difficult. Here in America, there's maybe 6 or 7 companies doing this work today of any significance. The largest, of course, is Icon down in Texas. They really helped blaze a trail on this concept, and they're the best of the best at the moment doing this work in Texas. And we were very thankful for what they've been able to do to help us and other groups come along. For a while, we were thinking, okay, we're going to be, competing with them, competing with others, et cetera. And something we've learned is that there is no competition at the moment in such a small industry. It's not like they lost a project that we wanted, or that they wanted, or vice versa, nor the other companies as well. We're not competing with anybody at the moment. We get that question all the time: who is your competition? That competition doesn't exist. However, the struggle is, obviously competition will come to be here in the next couple of years, and that's healthy, especially in a society like we live. But how do we create? We have the opportunity in front of us to create this industry however we like. And in my opinion, I would prefer as much collaboration and communication as possible between groups, especially because there are no best practices yet for this industry. All of us are creating them as we go. So, how do we open up communication? How do we work together at a not just a national but a global scale? Sharing information. There's groups that are doing heavy R&D. There's groups that are doing heavy field work and everything in between. Talking all the time, making sure that we have uh, organizations in place for us to share this work, not only in person, but through mediums like this. But how are we becoming a global industrial family? That's what's important to me. Again, I didn't get into this work to try. This is not a goal of making millions of dollars or running a wonderful company or anything like that. Certainly, should that happen, that's great. My goal is solving a problem, and that is literal structural issue for every single person on this planet. And every day that goes by, the situation gets worse. We're battling the climate crisis, we're battling the pandemic, we're battling financial issues all the time, and you're seeing migration patterns shift because of this. So, with that happening up here, how do we bring the volume down, and how are we able to collaborate and speak with folks that are just getting into the industry, people who have been in it for a long time, and everybody in the middle, so that we have a not a level playing field, but a communicative playing field, so we can do our best.
Well, I've never done what you've just asked the question about. Do I have ideas? Can we bounce some thoughts? Yeah. But I do see some first steps that I think would be pretty critical in there. And let's just find out if you're already there first.
Sure.
Uh, I've had other members of our community who wanted to go, and I'm going to say, step into thought leadership and industry influencing roles where they were shifting how everything was done and how people come together and think about, right? So they're wanting, that's kind of the level you're wanting to play in. Um, what what most of them went through, there's two sides. One, do we have the chops enough and the background enough where people are saying, oh, Zachary's someone we should be talking with. Look what he pulled off. So has your business shown that you are a serious player in the space? That's one. And then two, do you have the time and freedom that's needed and resources to go and play in that space, which can pay off very well for your own business and for all other businesses too. But do you have that freedom of time and money to go and play in that space, to be able to lead or to influence others? So is your house both in order and running and doing its thing? And was there enough success in it that the people say, Zachary's someone we should be listening to? So if you answer those two questions, where are you at on those two?
So, is our house in order that way as we are printing the walls of the house all at the same
That's
time?
right. That's
So
right.
and really that's a good look of how this business is going. So, are we an influential group? Yes. Almost by default, there are very few groups out there doing this work. So I would wager that every group that is attempting to do this,
Could
whether
be
they have
influential
success
if
or
they
failure,
choose to.
absolutely yes.
Okay.
It's so early in this industry that everybody's opinion matters. So yes on that.
Great.
But in terms of the time and resources to do this, no.
Okay.
People ask a lot about the industry of I get the question of why if 3D printing is so great, why has it not taken over the market and completely changed the industry, et cetera? So I will remind folks that number one, we're still not there yet on the cost savings at any major level, that there's more work to be done. I believe we will get there, but we're not there yet. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, we're trying to change one of the oldest industries on the planet. And that has been building things largely the same way for centuries with hammers and nails. And so changing and upending an industry, I don't want to say disrupting. That's not what we're doing. I would say that we're advancing the industry. That's going to take time. And I'll remind folks that we've only been 3D concrete printing structures in America for about 6 years. This is very, very new. Globally, it's been about 10. This is a brand new, we are babies in this world. And so it's going to take time. That being said, the number one reason why this is not spreading far and wide yet is financial. And what I mean by that is some folks would say, well, don't you have a problem getting past codes and permitting and et cetera? And honestly, that is not an issue. And I say this a lot. That is not a hurdle for anybody in this industry. We and others can get past that rather easily. It's certainly a challenge, but that's not the problem. That's not a problem. The problem is this is an expensive venture to get into. The robots are expensive. The material is expensive. The labor is expensive. We can't go out in the street and find people that have experienced 3D printing a house. They don't exist. We have to create them from scratch and do all of our training on the job site. That's expensive. So you need millions and millions of dollars to get this done and to be meaningful. Now, I didn't know that when we started. When this company began, we had less than $1 million of initial funding. Part of that came from a grant. Part of that came from a small investment. And it was just, I was the first and only employee at the time for about 3 months until we hired our second person. And so today you can't do that. There's no way. You need millions of dollars to get this done just to start. So that's going to change. And we want to help change that. And there's a variety of ways to change it, which we can go into if you like. But that's what's holding it back. And it's not just investment dollars. It's also public dollars. And this needs to be a public-private partnership. We need more support at the federal level and at state levels and at city government, municipality levels to get this done. We need them to be providing the money for R&D on the robots, on the material, on the methodology, on the weather patterns, on training facilities. That's something that we need, and that's a typical role for a public entity to play. And there are examples of it, for sure. We're getting support from Colorado as an example. We did not get support from Iowa, and we did not get support from the other states that we went to at the level that we wanted. So that's a problem that needs to shift. At the federal level, I can tell you, I had a call recently with folks at HUD. Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of details of all for this podcast and the people listening. When we're looking, I think if we could get back to the question of your house in
Gotcha.
order, do you personally have the time and the money freedom
right
to be able to go and do the influencing you want, or do we need to do some things there first?
Sure. And so do I personally have the time and financial resources to do this work? The answer is no. And I don't think anybody in the industry does. Time is relative. I will always make time. And it's a saying in this world, in the startup industry, time, you'll find the time if it's important, first of all. The money's a different story. And so we do need more support to be able to do that work.
Your business that you're running right now, have we not got it to plate though it can print houses, can it not print money yet? Like, are you to a point where it's like we can run this and here's the cash that it gives, and this cash is building? We're not to that point yet.
Not yet. We're approaching it, but I'd say we're going to be there in the next couple of months. But I know we'll be there in the next couple of months. The issue is that still at that point, this is not a game where any of those dollars that we make, we're investing back into the business.
Yeah, and need to be. But
yes.
But that's that key is all of the visions and the hopes and all the dreams, everything we've got, it comes crashing down the moment the business that we're pointing to or the business that supports us falls apart. The moment it runs into too many challenges. And so as a founder that then becomes a CEO, that then you're talking about more like board level role where the business can run so you can have the time to get out there and do. That's what we're getting to.
And that's where we are at the moment, is that I recently stepped down as CEO and hired a new CEO, Patrick Callahan, who's fantastic. I've transitioned to board chair. I'm just getting to the point now where I do have the time to do this.
That's great. You've made that first transition. that was one of the keys I was looking at for the kind of influence you want to be at. Normally, I see the business right around 10 million before they're at that spot where they
Yeah,
could if they chose. They don't have to choose that. But if
correct.
they're wanting to go and do influence, they either need to step away from day to day, I'll call it COO work, and
Hmm.
just be the CEO and influencer out there and lead just those leaders, or they need to step out fully out of the CEO role too and get into that
Well,
board
that
type of
was,
role.
it's interesting that I agree with that. And that was a necessary move for us. It was not something I was thinking,
Okay.
frankly, until I met Patrick. And I realized, wow, there's somebody who's better at this than I am, and wants to do the job. And he's sitting right here in front of me. I met Patrick. He was initially an investor, then he became a board member, and then he became CEO. And it was an ideal transition. I'm much happier. The business is much happier. So
Perfect.
it's good.
You've made that transition, and that's a huge one. A lot of people have a hard time letting go of their baby, but what's fun is from the beginning, your baby wasn't 3D printing.
Correct.
Yours was changing the housing situation for the world, right?
Yes.
Housing the world and what that takes to do. Terrific. So you've got, we're going to call it the day job is running and caring for you enough in the board role so you can time wise go into. Now, as we think about this new thing, um, if what if you thought about it as your own business and its own new startup? And the question is always, uh, yes, you already have your vision of why you're doing this and some of the core values that have to drive behind those decision makings going on. To help you, I say, who is the next question? Who should be part of this core team? And I think that's your next question is to start thinking across the world, who are who are my core team members? And you don't have to form an official business, but you can form an official organization around it. But more importantly is who? Who are the players that have the same passion, have the things? And do we, second, have a clear defined mission of if this is what we're about and these are the right players, what do we have to accomplish? Because that many people who are as free as you are have the basics met. A paycheck isn't what's going to pull them into this. They
Right.
need to know that we're getting together to create impact and we're measuring it this way. Together, I would have that group come and begin to make the plan and say, let's dream big, and let's put down a what we have to achieve in the next 3 years to show we're achieving the big dream 50 years out from now or whatever.
I agree entirely. And to an extent, we are doing that. I wouldn't say we're
Good.
done with that. Here's the problem that we run up against when we do that is inevitably we get to, well, we really need to be a trade organization and we need an objective party to be advocating for the industry as a whole, whether that's here in America or globally, whatever it is. And that means that no one company can be doing that because inevitably none of us are going to be objective. So then it begins to say, okay, everybody needs to throw some resources into a pot that we use to bring on a person, an entity, whatever it is, a nonprofit objective group that can advocate on behalf of all of us. And some groups either don't agree or are unwilling to do it, but most of them are. They like the idea. Nobody has the time, excuse me, the money to be able to do that. So we're in this chicken and egg scenario. I think there will be a day when that comes.
Well, get to that when you will, but you're talking about lobbyists. That's what we're talking.
I
Great
am,
advocates,
yes,
which are great, and I just
but
want to
it's,
get clear, which means we're talking about people.
yep.
So why aren't one of those people who really cares about this topic, part of your group already, part of that core team? They don't have to be in housing printing.
Right.
Who's who's that lobbyist? It's already made it. They've already got their connections. They
And
know their
that
thing.
person doesn't exist yet. Is the coming out of this industry? Perhaps they're from other
Yeah,
industries. Yeah.
that's right. That's what I want you to clear is not industry. The lobbyist, um, many come from an industry and others then can move around lots of industries because it's
Yes.
actually the connections to the people inside. The industry is just the one side that's paying them at the time. There are established people who are very good
Hmm.
at lobbying, i.e., helping policy writers create great policy, think through the issues, bring the resources. They're the go to people. Finding a few of those, and then you just need to get some that align around your vision. Let's
I
bring
agree.
in some of that. Get those on your team. You're not paying for a resource yet. You're getting insight. You're getting help. You're getting someone who's making introductions. That's a first thought. Anyway, when we think of a big challenge to tackle, you always start off when you've got a vision out there, but then you always start off with
Yes.
who needs to be in this, and think broadly. Anytime you think, well, we don't have the money or the resources, think, well, that was to get who. If
Right.
it was a who question, can we win them over with vision? In our normal businesses, this is something else we can do too. When we're saying, oh, I've got to figure out my marketing, I've got to figure out, and I'm going to use these resources, we're going to use this cash over there. Figure out the who. If you can win them over with vision, you don't have to win them over as much with dollars,
Agreed. This is
right?
back in our early theater days. We couldn't afford to pay anybody, so we paid them with
That's
cases of PBR. So
that's
we're well beyond that today, but it's a similar idea.
that's right. That's the idea. Go back to those roots. You know how to sell a story. You've been doing it. And the reality is a great lobbyist knows how to sell a story too. You may be the lobbyist, Zachary, with a good mentor or someone else. You may be the person that we're thinking about. So uh, that was the thoughts that I had. You've done the key work. You built your business to a point that you have someone else who can run it. The culture is strong, I'm assuming,
Yes.
in what it is that can learn, grow, build without you at the helm anymore. You're able to give your insight and you're out there creating the next level thing. Um, I mean, that key is always, can we build enough leaders to lead my business? So instead of just printing houses, can I start printing leaders? And the moment I can free myself up
Yeah.
to do
I,
anything else I need
that's a
to.
great way of putting it. I agree.
So that was the spot. You did it. I don't think you need anything from this podcast, and I don't think we're going to be able to add any more value. But
I
was
disagree
any of
with
it
that.
helpful?
Oh, very helpful. I mean, this is, I mean, at the very base level, it's always great to talk about these things. Obviously, you've spoken to hundreds of leaders with completely different backgrounds. So you're this base of information that is fantastic to tap. So this is very beneficial.
I'm glad you got some value out of it. We did too, in some of the things you shared. I especially just want to dwell just a little bit. If the listeners didn't catch on to it, it was the transitioning, the willingness to let go and let someone else do, and the fear of what's that going to be like. But on the other end, you said, and I'm happier, and the business is happier, and the things are moving. That transition isn't always stepping out of the business, it's often just stepping out of a role you were filling. So many owners are like holding 4 or 5 roles near and dear to their heart that each one of them is like this painful surgery. But
Yes.
then afterwards, we're like, oh, I'm so glad we did that. That was a
Right.
painful 6 months, but I'm so glad we did that.
And frankly, our front, it was not a painful 6 months. It was rather seamless. But again, that was finding the right people.
Yeah.
And to your point about holding on to it and not willing to let go, and I have started many other businesses, some which did well and some which did not. And the ones that where we did not were the levels where I personally was unwilling to let go of those positions, and
Yes.
it ended up dooming the organization. So that was a great lesson I learned years ago to prepare me for this. And this was this transition was seamless, and but it wasn't planned. There was a largely organic system here, and that's because we set up the right atmosphere to attract the right people.
And because you were vision driven on this, meaning we know what we're trying to do, and so everyone was being pulled the same way. We've
Yes.
got to step to the next, we have to do the next, and so things could grow that way. It wasn't a mix where this person thought we need to do industry and this one thought like we just got to make a ton of money and let's go, let's dominate the industry. Or If you'd had that internal going on really heavily, there wouldn't have been
It's
organic
true.
through
Everybody
this
bought into
process.
the vision and the mission of the organization
That's right.
on the outset.
And you only let those people be a part of it in the first place.
Yes.
That was key work you did. So, I mean, those are huge nuggets, and I hope all the listeners grabbed onto those. That will be the key for anyone's success. The vision has to drive it. That vision can be any of the different topics, directions we talked about, but everyone has to be aligned if we're going to move seamlessly forward. Seamlessly, there's always some bumps, but you certainly move faster and
Yes.
better. So thank you again. And that's wrapping up this round. But Zachary, if someone wants to get in touch with you or be a part of this change or go get their house printed, how do they get in touch with you?
It's very easy. Just go onto the website. Our contact information is on there. It's alquist3d.com. We love our business is driven entirely by random people popping up out of nowhere. Of our best projects have happened that way. So I encourage folks to reach out, get involved. It's an exciting, brand new industry that you can put your fingerprints on.
Great. Alquist, Alquist, the number 3, the letter D.com is alquist3d.com. And thank you so much for being on the show. That wraps up another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. We're grateful for all of you who are listening, engaging. Please continue to strive, to grow, to care, to build. You are the ones that are building the solutions that our children, grandchildren, and everyone to come need. Keep striving. Until next time.